it is probably the most debt heavy people process program, whatever you want to call it, that exists. I don't know about you all, but I've never met a human that is like, I love my company's performance, process. And so, again, that's it. Knowing that there's a problem is number one. Like, it's not working, it's not creating value and impact. And so we're digging into that at Sprout in particular. What we found is an interesting kind of hypothesis, and that is the debt, so to speak, that sits within performance is on HR most of the time because we've only been solving one part of the performance equation. And what I mean by that is historically, companies, HR departments typically over-index on saying we are going to go out and quantify and measure performance. So your whole entire performance experience is built on performance reviews, how the rating systems, how you're actually going to say and tell your employees, this is how we measure and quantify your performance so we can give you a nice rating and then we can pay you accordingly, right? And that is actually a very important, very, very important piece of the performance equation. But what most companies have been missing, or HR departments too, is the second and equally important part of that performance equation, which is actually around not only how do you quantify and measure performance, but more importantly, how do you accelerate and drive even better performance amongst your people? And we generally miss that second part of the equation because we're so focused on, let's just measure and quantify it in a fair, consistent way and then be on our way. So we really looked at solving both sides of that equation this year and making sure that we were solving the full performance equation. So that's where we started, and we revamped our process as a result. Like, we've always done a pretty consistent job at the quantifying and measuring. And this year we're leaning in a bit more on the how do we accelerate and drive even greater performance through the process.
And so can you share some more details on, I guess, like first on the quantifying and measuring, like what improvements, if any, have y'all made? And then on the accelerating performance side, like what are some of the things that y'all are going to test?
Yeah, I think for us on the measuring side, we do have ratings, so we're not like ditching ratings and all that. We like the measurable aspect of that. But our goal is to make it super fair, super transparent, easy, simple, and, focused on growth. And so the main change we did this year on the measurement side was that we tried to give our process a bit more, I'm trying to think the best way to articulate that, a more actionable, or give our managers and even employees that are doing their self-reviews a more actionable view of performance. And we made the process a bit smarter through automation. So we asked, instead of having like subjective, open-ended questions that take forever for a manager to like think through and respond to, or even as your self-review when you're like, I feel like I have to write a novel to tell my manager all the great things about myself. We got rid of most open-ended questions, and we asked most questions for both the self-review and manager review in very objective ways with scales. So an example of that would be, we ask in the manager review, how well did this team member consistently achieve their performance targets on a scale of 1 to 5? What is this team member's overall impact on the company or their team on a scale of 1 to 5? If this team member told you today that they were leaving, would you fight to keep them on a scale of 1 to 5? And then one of the most like pointed questions we actually ask is this team member has a performance problem with either results or behaviors that I need to address immediately. And, we're asking them to flag that. And then what's interesting is to simplify that. So it's more of these objective rating scale-based questions, but we also added auto calculation and recommended ratings based on how managers answer those questions. So I like that a lot in terms of taking the work out of the manager's hand and helping them really think objectively and take away any bias, answer their questions, and then we auto calculate and say, based on how you answered these rating scales, here's your recommended rating for the employee.